In this video, I'm going to give you 5 things to keep in mind and to help you game master Forbidden Lands from Free League Publishing. Next on How to RPG. If you want to run Forbidden Lands in your own homebrew setting or another third-party publisher, then go right ahead. There's nothing saying that you can't. There is no RPG police.
There are inconsistencies in your story.
For the purposes of this video, I'm going to talk to you and refer to the Ravenland, which is the default setting outlined in the core books, as well as the map that's provided in the box set. One of the things that you may or may not already know is that the player's guide doesn't have a lot of rich history about the default setting in the Ravenland. Sure, it outlines some of the kin, skills, action economy, gear, talents, things that is pertinent to the player characters. But as a game master, in the Game Master book, there's actually 40 pages of just a timeline outlining the history of the Ravenland up to the current point in time, or at least around the time of which you're going to kick off your campaign. So as the game master, you have full understanding of the history to include what's called the Blood Mist. The Blood Mist has been in place for over 300 years. The player characters don't know how it came to be. It's settled in the land all over. Anybody being caught in the Blood Mist, well, they disappear. The Blood Mist comes in the evening, so it's limited many of the people within the Ravenland to only travel a half day out from their safe haven or risk being caught in the Blood Mist and ultimately face their demise. Over 300 years, multiple generations, these player characters have grown up in a small village or hamlet and haven't gone out and explored anywhere past that half day's journey. And it's been in place for so long that the world outside their safe haven has essentially, or could be, extremely different from generations past. And even over generations, how much has been conveyed one to the next to the next. Sometimes translation is lost. It's a game of long time telephone. The first thing that I would recommend as you decide to run the Forbidden Lands as a game master is to not divulge the history of the world. Have it come through play. Have it come through their exploration. Now, for some of you that do that as a default in your own games, it might seem like a no-brainer. But in some people's games, it's very easy to just give them the source book and say, you know everything that's in here. You know all about the politics. But in Forbidden Lands, due to the Blood Mist, all that has been, well, it hasn't come to fruition because there isn't a means of which to have that information proliferated. If you do want your player characters to know something, perhaps you tie it into something about their background or some of their information that has led them to travel. Possibly a stranger running into the village for safety, conveying information from afar. And maybe that little bit of knowledge they have in their mind talks about the tales of the Rust brothers or the Raven sisters. But is that information even accurate? You're able to kind of manipulate that as the game master. And then as play takes place, the players can come to know whether it's true or not. Number 2, the map. Now, map is not terrain. And you get a really nice map within the box set. And it's actually mentioned in the game to just put the map out on the table. As a matter of fact, the box comes with stickers. So as the players move through hexes and they come across ruins or significant obstacles within the hexes, they can place those stickers appropriately. I ran this through a virtual tabletop, but even if I were to run it in person, I wouldn't expose the entire map. You see, there are ruins that are etched into it and printed, and what will happen is the player characters will want to go in a particular direction to explore those ruins. But how do they know those ruins are even there? how do they even have this map? In the virtual tabletop or even face-to-face, what I would do in face-to-face games is just write the hex, put it out on the table and say, you are here. And as they go to the next hex, then draw the next hex that they go into. And so as they play, the map becomes much more robust. In a virtual tabletop, you can use a fog of war. Just outline the edges of the hex so that they know which direction is which and what they can see off in the distance. Be mindful that as they explore hexes, they have gone through those and they have to make checks. Going back, they don't need to make those checks because they've already navigated through that hex. So it's important to keep track of their trail, especially on a virtual tabletop, because it's a little different to manage. As they move, the fog of war moves back in. You don't want that to happen. Once the map's exposed and they've gone through those hexes, allow them to see those clearly. No problem. Number 3. Now the start of the campaign. When and where? Now I say when because the blood mist has risen after 300 years or dissipated. But how long after it's noticed that it doesn't reappear every evening do the player characters realize this and venture out from their safe haven? If you make that too soon after the discovery of the dissipation of the blood mist, then is it realistic that their suspicions and something that's held them up for 300 years has simply disappeared without a trace indefinitely? They don't know that. If you wait too long after the blood mist has dissipated, then what happens is then maybe your land or the Ravenland is more traveled. They'll come across more people. Things are starting to get freed up a little bit more, and the fear of that blood mist is maybe months, years in the past. I'd recommend anywhere between 3 and 9 months in the game. This way that their suspicions and the words of caution from the villagers have weighed on their consciousness, but yet they still have the itch to go out and realize that it's not coming back night after night, and it's been 3, 6, 9 months since that's happened. So it's just the right amount of time, and that the lands themselves are still waiting to be explored.
The wilderness must be explored! Go, go!
There isn't as many explorers out there. They're not going to run into too many things hex after hex. If you want that to happen, well then put it out 2 or 3 years and have those different villages start having individuals go out into the Ravenland in an effort to explore, set up communication, or trade. Now, where do you want to start it? Of course, you can start it in a village and have the player characters go out from there. That wasn't necessarily my choice, and the big reason is because I would feel as though the player characters would become too dependent upon the village. After all, they would know every single person. They would know where all the bodies are buried. They would know everybody's secrets. It just became more of a, go out, come back type of thing, a bit more safe, if you will. But Sean, how do you get them to be in the middle of nowhere if they really don't know where they are and you take the map away? Wouldn't they know that they've traveled to the hex that they start in? Well, that is true, but I had a good group that was able to say, okay, we suspend disbelief. But one other way to do it is maybe they're out traveling, they get knocked on the head, and they wake up in the middle of a slave camp somewhere and they're escaping. So they literally do not know where they've been transported. That's one method. But how you facilitate that as a game master is up to you. That way they have 6 sides to a hex. Which direction do you want to go? You're in the middle of nowhere. The other option is, well, a kind of happy medium. My second game that I ran, I created a place called Eden's Outpost. Eden's Outpost was founded by 4 individuals, and it was in a disputed land from the Wolfkin. So the Wolfkin said, hey, this is our land, and then you put this outpost up. So there was always a tension between those in the outpost and the Wolfkin surrounding it. Leads to some interesting story developments. An outpost is also interesting because it can be used for trading, but yet it's not a full-fledged village. So every once in a while when the player characters would go out, find some loot, bring it back, they can exchange that with other NPCs that would also visit that outpost. And of course, with the visitation of different NPCs, there could be different interactions with those NPCs and the player characters. Maybe there's some rumors and information that comes from those NPCs. So now, rather than putting them in the middle of nowhere with maybe no direction, those NPCs can plant story seeds for player characters to take and act upon. Backstory and dark secrets and rumors. The first time that I ran this game, I put them in the middle of the map, and then I just said, which direction do you want to go? It was good, but then after a few hexes, I thought, well, how do I get them information? How do I get them to look for this particular artifact? How do they come across a particular piece of lore? And the way that I did it, it was terrible. I actually put a journal on the ground, and they happened to discover it in a dilapidated farmhouse, and they picked it up and read it, put it in their pocket. Just clunky. Second time I ran it, I asked each player why their player character was wandering around this godforsaken land after being cooped up in their safe haven their entire lives. And all the people saying, stay here, it's safe, it's dangerous out there. Why would you want to go out there? You could live your life right here in your own home, safe and sound. With that information, perhaps one of your player characters says, well, I want to find power and glory and magic. And if they do, make note of that. Also come up with one or two rumors. Things that they've heard of in the village. Now you say, but Sean, you said that many people don't come into the village due to the blood mist. Well, sure, that doesn't mean one or two people haven't come there. Or even if the town elder doesn't have a book of lore and there's a page or a tale that they've told children, and all through your lives you've heard about this one tale about the king, give them that information. The player characters will have a list, and then they can debate about them amongst themselves on which direction to go and what they want to pursue. Backstory can also come into play. Like I mentioned, ask them why they're traveling around. The dark secret, of course, is something to be implemented. There's actually mechanical benefit to that. Each player character lists a dark secret, and they can use that dark secret in gameplay to get some boons. As a matter of fact, if they use their dark secret in a game session, they actually get an experience point at the end. So don't forget to look at dark secrets as part of those motivations and things that you can plant in front of them in order to take advantage of as they adventure through the Ravenland. If you appreciate some of the content I provided, give me a thumbs up. And if not, give me a thumbs down. I'm all good with that as well. And then be sure to subscribe or hit the bell for future content. Thanks. So the fifth and final piece of advice that I'll give you as a game master for Forbidden Lands is to keep game prep low. Each time a player character group goes into a hex, the game master is supposed to roll on a table and come up with potential random encounter. Now, it's up to you whether you want to do that for every hex that they enter, maybe it's every other one, or it's just dependent upon the weather or how you feel that evening, or what you have prepped. But if you take too much time to prep, there is a chance that the player characters may not actually get to the actual area that you have set up for them. As a matter of fact, I had a tower set up for my player characters 1 hex away. It took them 2 sessions to get there because they decided to actually camp out on the beach, train, fish, and hunt. Say, for example, you come up with a great tower and they see it off in the distance. They may not go in that direction. They may say, oh, tower, nope. And they go the complete opposite way. Therefore, your tower sits there and rots, and 2 days of preparation are down the tube. And frankly, now that you took 2 days to prep for that tower and they're going the opposite direction, a direction you have absolutely zero prep for, well, roll that random encounter. Keep it short. And then as the pace picks up in the game and you become more familiar with it, well, then maybe you can pick up the prep and become, have those encounters be a little bit more elaborate. Or you could pick up one of the supplements that I'll list down below, like the Crypt of the Millified Mage or the Spire of Quetzal, both with very elaborate adventuring sites that you can use and drop in your campaign. But just watch out for the one in the Spire of Quetzal. I TPK'd my guys on it. So that's some of the things that I had learned from when I ran the game and actually played in it. And I've run it twice. First time did not go that well. It was very aimless, very ad hoc, felt disjointed. Second time, much, much better. There were things that the player characters had known, things that they could explore and pursue in the Ravenland, and they wanted to be out there. There was a reason to go to the north or the west. And then, of course, through their journey, they would encounter all kinds of different things. I'll put down below where you can find Forbidden Lands if you haven't bought this awesome game. There's plenty of reviews out there, and I hope this helps you run the game. I'd also be interested to hear about some of your tips and advice. If you've run this game, put them down in the comments below. If you don't agree with some of the tips that I've given you, hey, chime in below. I'm interested to hear that as well. So, thanks for viewing, thanks for being here, and remember, be a positive force in the tabletop RPG hobby. See you on the next one.